You are about to witness the ultimate act of bureaucratic hubris. Meet the most devastating legal counterstrike ever recorded in a suburban dispute. They thought they could steal a legacy, an entire 30-acre tract of privately inherited land, simply by paving roads and building $30 million homes on it. They illegally annexed this property, signed fraudulent documents, looked the true owner straight in the eye, laughing, telling him he was just confused about his own deeds. But that laughter died when the judge signed the injunction, handing not just the land back, but awarding every single one of those 30 illegally built properties directly to our protagonist. 30 homes, 30 titles, all gone in an instant. This is the story of how a small-town HOA president, calling herself the Iron Duchess, got absolutely wiped off the map by a man who simply owned the dirt she built her kingdom on. If you have ever felt that crushing weight of injustice, if you've ever had a Karen or a corrupt HOA try to step on your rights, then you know exactly why we do this. Smash that like button right now. Seriously, hit it like you mean it. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because this story, this ultimate payback, is going to blow the lid off the entire system. Let's get into the deep dive of how the Iron Duchess declared war on the wrong landowner. Our story begins not in some sprawling mansion, but in the dusty, neglected records of the affluent Whispering Pines, HOA, a pristine gated community where the price of entry starts at a cool $1 million. Our protagonist, let's call him Alex, is a quiet software engineer who suddenly inherited a piece of land from his eccentric, estranged great-aunt Mildred, a woman who famously hated government, banks, and especially HOAs. Alex had no idea what he had inherited, only a box of brittle parchment-like deeds and a cryptic note. "Dante, let the plastic people take the dirt." The land in question? 30-acre parcel bordering the entire northern stretch of Whispering Pines. When Alex finally took the time off to drive out and survey his new property, what he saw didn't match the old-school plat maps. The maps showed an undeveloped, heavily wooded area. What Alex saw was a vibrant, fully operational subdivision, complete with street lamps, meticulously manicured lawns, and 30 brand new, identical luxury homes lining a cul-de-sac called Mildred's Grove. Yes, the HOA, under the iron fist of its president Fiona, the Iron Duchess Sterling, had not only built houses on his land, they had named the new street after the woman whose estate they were illegally defrauding, likely assuming the name was a coincidence or a developer's ironic tribute. The irony was suffocating. Alex, completely stunned, pulled out his phone and took a dozen photos. The deed clutched in his trembling hand, called the HOA immediately. He was connected to Fiona Sterling herself, the Iron Duchess. He tried to be calm, explaining that he was the rightful owner of the undeveloped land they had apparently built a new section of their community on. Fiona's response? A cold, polished laugh. She informed him that Mildred's Grove had been part of Whispering Pines for 3 years, that the land had been legally acquired by the HOA from the original developer, and that he must be mistaken clutching an obsolete deed from some deceased relative. She finished the call with a chillingly corporate, "Don't worry, we'll send a very expensive lawyer to explain the difference between a tax map and a proper survey to you, Mr. Alex. Have a nice day." The audacity of this woman telling him his own inheritance was worthless, that his legal documents were fantasy, ignited something cold and hard in Alex. He hung up the phone and looked at the 30 homes, their windows gleaming in the setting sun. He was officially at war, and the minor conflict of a boundary dispute had just escalated to an existential property fight. He drove to the local court and filed an initial low-key motion. A simple request for a detailed public review of the 30-year-old original land deed, thereby setting the fuse on the entire powder keg. The Iron Duchess, Fiona Sterling, is not accustomed to being challenged by confused little men with old pieces of paper. Her HOA attorney, a man named Mr. Harrington, whose suit cost more than Alex's car, filed a blistering countersuit. It wasn't just a defense. It was an offense designed to crush Alex under the weight of legal fees and bureaucratic intimidation. They claimed adverse possession, meaning they had used the land for so long, openly and without objection, that it was legally theirs. They claimed Alex's deed was invalid due to a 30-year-old boundary survey error that had since been quietly corrected by the developer, a developer, Alex quickly discovered, who had conveniently gone bankrupt and vanished. They claimed the 30 homeowners who lived in Mildred's Grove were now co-defendants, and that Alex was harassing and intentionally trying to defraud dozens of innocent families. The financial pressure was immediate and brutal. Alex, working with a small security lawyer who believed in the righteousness of the old deed, was pouring every penny into the fight. But then, the Iron Duchess pulled the ultimate, outrageous, and truly illegal move. She utilized her power as HOA president, not just to fight Alex in court, but to damage his property. She instructed the HOA maintenance crew to enter the disputed tract, his land, and begin tearing down the boundary fence Alex had finally managed to erect near the entrance to the grove, citing a visual blight violation. The crew went further. They discovered a small, historically significant stone marker, an original 1888 boundary corner that Aunt Mildred had specifically protected with a small, decorative iron cage. Fiona, seeing it as irrefutable proof of Alex's claim, ordered it smashed, hauled away, and replaced with a standard, modern, visually conforming concrete culvert. Alex's lawyer got the call, "Your historical landmark is gone, and the court just issued a temporary restraining order against you for intimidating the Whispering Pines maintenance crew." The frustration was monumental. The footage Alex had was too shaky. The maintenance crew claimed he had tried to assault them. Fiona Sterling was playing dirty, weaponizing the legal system and her community's vast financial resources. The illegal demolition of the historical marker, the brazen lie in court, and the mounting legal bills left Alex completely exposed. He was forced to agree to a temporary court-ordered gag order, preventing him from talking to any of the Mildred's Grove homeowners, and temporarily stopping him from setting foot on the 30-acre plot, his own land, until the next major hearing. He was locked out, silenced, and financially bleeding. While the Iron Duchess smiled on the local news, telling a reporter that the dispute with the local eccentric was almost over, he was helpless, trapped between a corrupt HOA, a biased judge, and a mountain of legal paperwork that was slowly choking him. Helplessness, however, is a powerful motivator for a software engineer. Alex realized he couldn't beat the Iron Duchess in her own rigged, expensive game of courtroom drama. He had to change the game. Stop pouring money into daily legal motions and started pouring it into research. He remembered the vanished developer, Summit Builders, that Fiona claimed had sold them the land. He spent 3 weeks tracing every single digital footprint, old corporation filings, domain name registrations, and defunct email accounts. The breakthrough came when he found a forgotten, ancient FTP server tied to an old Summit Builders accounting firm. Deep within the server, buried under thousands of irrelevant financial files, was a folder labeled simply Whispering Pines Binder. Inside, a signed, notarized internal memo between Summit Builders and Fiona, Sterling personally, not the HOA, detailing the quiet annexation strategy. The memo clearly stated that the developer was fully aware the 30 acres belonged to the estate of Mildred, that they intended to exploit the lack of a living heir to build on the land, and that Fiona, as HOA president, was their point of contact and legal shield in exchange for a massive, secret rebate on her own home and the promise of a seat on the developer's new, unrelated corporate board. But the real smoking gun was an email chain detailing the deliberate smashing of Aunt Mildred's historical stone marker, with Fiona instructing her crew to ensure all evidence of the old boundary is pulverized and buried. Alex had it all: premeditated fraud, conspiracy to commit theft, and obstruction of justice through the destruction of evidence. He presented the digital evidence, secured by a forensic IT specialist, to his lawyer. The lawyer's face went white. They didn't file a motion in civil court. They marched straight to the district attorney and filed a criminal complaint against Fiona Sterling for conspiracy and grand theft. The result was instantaneous. The DA's office took over the case, and, citing the overwhelming evidence of criminal intent and obstruction, the civil court judge was forced to immediately issue a permanent injunction. The judge didn't just rule in favor of Alex. He cited the egregious, malicious, and criminal nature of the HOA president's actions. The ruling was final. The land was Alex's. Furthermore, based on the laws governing property built on fraudulently acquired land, the judge delivered the crushing blow. The improvements, the $30 million homes, were legally considered fixtures to the land and were now the sole property of the true landowner, Alex. Title was transferred immediately. 30 homes, gone. The fallout was biblical. The residents of Mildred's Grove, The 30 innocent families who had been used as human shields by Fiona were suddenly tenants of Alex. Their million-dollar mortgages were now completely unsecured. The collective financial loss was so staggering that the lender, a major national bank, immediately froze all lending in Whispering Pines, causing the entire community's property values to plummet. The Iron Duchess, Fiona Sterling, was arrested that afternoon at a highly publicized HOA board meeting, right as she was trying to calm the panicked homeowners. The spectacle was everything Alex could have hoped for: handcuffs, a media scrum, and her face pale and contorted, plastered on the evening news. The HOA itself, facing ruinous lawsuits from the 30 defrauded homeowners, was immediately placed into receivership by the state attorney general. HOA board, in a desperate last-ditch attempt to save themselves, voted to permanently ban Fiona Sterling from ever setting foot on Whispering Pines property again, effectively stripping her of her own home. She was out on bail, facing decades in prison, and now she was also homeless. But Alex's payback was just starting. He didn't immediately sell the 30 houses. He had a better idea. He issued an immediate notice to all 30 families. They had 60 days to secure a proper lease from the new owner, Alex, or vacate the premises. He then contacted the HOA's long-standing, universally despised, and notoriously expensive landscape maintenance company, Pristine Greens, which had a clause in their contract mandating that they maintain all of Whispering Pines, including the newly acquired Mildred's Grove. Alex, the official owner of the Grove, exercised his right to veto their services solely on his 30 properties. He didn't hire a competitor. He didn't hire a cheaper service. Instead, in a move of pure, spiteful brilliance, Alex hired a flock of goats, literal herd of goats, a simple, eccentric herder, to maintain the lawns of the entire Mildred's Grove, allowing them to graze freely, turning the meticulously manicured lawns into a wild, shaggy, and distinctly non-conforming pasture. The visual of the goats happily destroying the immaculate aesthetics of the multi-million-dollar subdivision. Right across the fence from the furious remaining HOA residents was the perfect low-cost middle finger to the entire system that had tried to crush him. The legal battle dragged on for another year, but the outcome was never in doubt. Fiona Sterling eventually pled guilty to felony fraud and conspiracy, serving a substantial sentence and being ordered to pay millions in restitution she would never be able to afford. The 30 homes of Mildred S. Grove were eventually sold back to the families who lived in them at a significant discount, with Alex using the massive, undisputed profits to establish the Mildred's Legacy Land Trust, a nonprofit organization dedicated to fighting HOA overreach and protecting private property rights. He didn't keep the money, he weaponized it for others. But the final, satisfying revenge was reserved for Fiona's former home. Having been banned from the entire community, her house was eventually seized by the bank. Alex, using his new organization, quietly bought the property at auction for cash. He then executed the final poetic act of revenge. He didn't move in. He didn't sell it for a profit. Instead, he completely demolished the house, leveling the structure until nothing but a bare concrete slab remained. He then had a team construct a simple, tasteful, 12-foot-high iron fence around the entire perimeter of the now empty lot. In the center of the bare concrete slab, he commissioned a renowned sculptor to place a massive 12-foot-tall bronze statue, a perfect, exact replica of Aunt Mildred's original, smashed 1888 boundary stone marker. Etched into the base of the statue was a simple, stark plaque: "Here lies the boundary, never to be crossed." The lot, which stood directly across the street from the Whispering Pines clubhouse, became a perpetual visual monument to the Iron Duchess's defeat. Eternally empty, non-conforming, highly visible scar on the face of the perfect community she had tried to steal and rule. The plastic people, as Aunt Mildred called them, had finally learned the price of trying to take the dirt. That is what happens when you try to mess with the deed. 30 houses, 1 criminal conviction, and a flock of goats for vengeance. If this story didn't get your blood pumping, nothing will. Let us know in the comments, what was the most shocking moment of Fiona Sterling's downfall? Hit that like button one last time, subscribe to the channel for more unbelievable stories, and make sure you hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next time a corrupt HOA meets its match.